It's Flip City Magazine, The Parodies, Special Edition, with savage send-ups of The Walking Dead, Star Trek Picard, Stranger Things, The Mandalorian, Guardians of the Galaxy, and more from the first 4 years of Flip City. Get Flip City The Parodies free when you subscribe in print at flipcitymag.com. The world's best satire magazine, and never, ever woke.
Space. A vast, dark void in need of exploration. Yeah, right! Space isn't about exploring, it's about getting rich. What's the fastest way to get rich? By collecting the splinters of Yggdrasil for glorious bounty. Too bad it's also the quickest way to get dead. Join Mistress Craven and her crew of scantily clad scoundrels as they sail the stars in search of the splinters of Yggdrasil. Magic, mayhem, and miniskirts in space. Go to abogrizzly.com to learn more. See you soon, matey.
I like these calm little moments before the storm.
Honeycomb's big, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not small, no, no, no.
Kiss my entire.
Oh, my darling, not 3 times on the ceiling if you want me.
Your coffee, sir.
Thanks, beautiful.
You're welcome.
This is a man's world.
Wow! Welcome to the coffee shop, boys and girls. You have tuned in to the podcast that won't rust, busk like dust, kink, stink, turn pink, or right out the seams of rainy season for 90 days or your money gladly refunded. Hey, I'm a writer, I'm an artist, and now, because my pay has been doubled, I'm the editor at Dark Gift Comics. Woohoo! All of that to say, I ain't shit. But we've got a good show today. I'm excited for this one. I know the chat is as well. However, I am not the subject matter expert on this stuff. So thank God I have in my repertoire, in my quiver, a couple of killer arrows. Mr. Tanner Hurley.
Hey.
Who is an uber geek of
the
nth degree, and the amazing Christy Phillips Kitty is here.
You know, it's funny. I don't think you actually know my real last name. That's
I
fine.
have no freaking idea who you even are.
Or why I'm here.
Yes. But as the creator and publisher of Flip City Magazine, her lineage, her literary lineage is tied strongly to our guest today, who is a freaking legend. And I got no words. I do want to say this. Abo, where you at? Next. Neat, he says, not next.
Next. I guess Abo doesn't like our guest.
Abo, we got to have Mo and Joe on the show soon. Let me know when. I want to get you guys out here and let's talk about the splinters of say that word.
Yggdrasil.
Thank you. I'm from the South. We don't use them big ass words down here. Shit.
It's okay. You got us northern transplants.
Shut up,
here
Tanner.
to help
Hey,
you.
Glenn Fleming is here. Good to see you, Glenn. An amazing creator in his own right. You guys go check out Hatch if you haven't yet.
Great stuff.
You're just something wrong with you if you're not all up in some Hatch. Things are going sideways. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
Oh, she doesn't care about you guys.
That's right. That's right.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
Wagner is here to rub salt in my wounds. Shut the hell up, Wagner. I play your trailer for free. You're not even giving me a kickback. What the hell? Where's the love? So I'm going to move myself down into third position here.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Tanner and Christy introduce our guest, and let's bring this guy out here.
Well, Tanner, what I know about Mort, I found out last night. He is OG punk rocker.
Yes.
In case you did not know. But if you want to list a couple of credits, feel free.
Well, I've been following him since the debut of the Zeus comics, and then led me to learning about his experience with Marvel and some questions I want to ask about Marvel music and his involvement with that. But yeah, he's a legend.
And
all right,
we're talking about the one and only Mort Todd.
Yay! Oh, I should do it. Yay! Hi, Mort.
All this talk of being a legend makes me feel like I've been dead for a couple of days.
Oh, hey,
no.
You're the one that made your Twitter handle the late Mort Todd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've been expecting it for like 40 years. Still breathing.
Mort, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. And I told Christy and Tanner backstage before you popped in, I'm happy that the campaign has closed, so we don't have to shill. We can just interview you and talk to you.
Last month, I've just been in spam mode.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's the one thing all of us know about, everybody on this panel. When you've got an active campaign going, you go on every show you can go on, and you answer the same questions over and over again to the point where Ben Edlund said this, the creator of The Tick. He was a artist of the year one year back in the 90s, and they asked him for a quote. He said, "I was working so many hours on The Tick that when the toilet flushed, I thought it said, 'I love you.'" That's how brain dead you go when you're doing these things. And I would go on shows and they would ask me the same questions. And this was during Pariah Blood and Mud, Tanner.
Okay.
The showrunner asked me for the elevator pitch. And of course, it's a revenge story, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, basically, it's a story about a young lady that had a YouTube cooking channel and someone gave her a bad review, so she goes and murders them. And I don't know why I said it. Well, yes, I do. I was tired of answering the same fucking question over and over again. And the host went, "Oh, so I didn't know that. Tell me you didn't do your homework without telling me you didn't do your homework. So it gets a bit crazy. So I'm glad that pressure is gone now, Mort, and I look forward to a conversation. I'm going to let these two yahoos take over, though. But welcome to the coffee shop.
Last night we did an interview, and I revealed all kinds of dark secrets I didn't do during the campaign because I was, I usually did it with Steve Ditko's nephew, and I wanted to show respect and everything. But last night I let it all hang.
I kept pushing you too. Every time like you like touched on something, a little controversial or,
That's my
I was
middle
like,
name.
Come on.
Yeah, this is by the way, typically there's a warning before the show. If you're delicate, this is not the show for you. This is not a safe space. You might want to go somewhere else if you're easily offended, because there's no filters here. We let it, like you said, Mort, let it all hang out. Please flop it out on the desk. Right. Let's go.
God, I'm holding myself back so much.
Well, Tanner, I believe that was your cue to start geeking out.
Oh man, okay, sorry. Still in shock and awe here. No, I discovered your stuff when you created the Zeus comics and
Zeus.
Yeah.
And I was telling Christy last night, like when I was in junior high, I got thrown out of school for doing a fake school bulletin that were read in every class on April Fools. And Zeus Comics was an April Fool that I did, where I made up all these titles from the 1950s and bagged them. I did the covers and put in old comics in between the covers. And, and I got in touch with the local press here and said, I was renovating my house and broke a wall down and found all these comic books worth thousands of dollars. And they sent a TV crew and all kinds of shit.
I love it.
And the titles were really horrible too. They were all like, the 1950s horror and crime, pushed to the edge and stuff.
But I saw the artwork and was just blown away by it.
Thank you.
So I discovered your site. I looked up your Wikipedia. The whole. I'm obsessive like that.
Oh no, I can relate. Yeah, when I like something, I latch onto it.
Yeah,
I must know everything.
Wait, before we gloss over that, you trolled the media. Trolling was a thing.
Yeah, and it was April 1st, and they're like, come on.
Yeah.
You could have like looked up the titles online and see they didn't exist.
That's funny as shit to me. An OG troll. Go ahead, Tanner.
So how did your involvement with Marvel Music come about?
And tell people what it was.
Yeah, it was a line of licensed books with bands ranging from rock to country to rap and everything in between, and it was pretty fun. They basically, I found out from a friend I was on a list. Marvel wanted to start this, licensing thing, and the guy actually, the president at the time, Terry Stewart, big music fan. So, this is kind of personal to him. And he ended up becoming like the head of country music television or something. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, they just called me out of the blue. And because not only did I like comic books, I was also kind of heavy into the rock scene. So, it was.
And when was this?
This would have been mid-90s.
Mid-90s. Okay.
Yeah. And what was funny is like every band I met with, they had at least one token comic geek. And they would be like, we're going to do a Marvel comic? Oh my God. And I mean, you know, the biggest geek, but he wasn't frantic, was Gene Simmons. You know, he was
Yeah.
he's like, oh, we got to have Kiss fight the X-Men and all this stuff. And
Now-
each book was different. You know, some were biography, like we did a beautiful Bob Marley biography that was drawn by Gene Colan with painted finishes by a Rasta artist, oil painting finishes. Very nice. And then we did like Alice Cooper. We tied in with his album Last Temptation of Alice. And Neil Gaiman wrote it, who is like, you know, he's disgraced now, but he was pretty hot.
he was a pretty big deal back in the day.
And so it was just real fun because, you know, not only did I get to work with a lot of great artists, I could also I toured with the bands and stuff. A lot of
nice,
you know, or like with AC/DC in the studio and stuff, and like Malcolm's doing his drawings, and you know, the kid in the short pants and all that, and it was just gas, you know, and also, you know, it was educational on my part because a lot of bands I wasn't really familiar with, but like Tanner says, when you get something, you latch onto it. So I'd find out everything about the band and talk with them. So almost all the bands came up with their ideas for their own comics and then farm it out. Yeah.
That's
so
when Tanner said Marvel Music, my brain went back to 1974 or 5, the Spider-Man rock comic.
Oh yeah, that was a bit later. Yeah. They did earlier have the Merry Marvel Marching Society and put out like, I can't remember if it was a floppy, you know, one of them 45s that were floppy or an actual 45.
Yeah.
But they interviewed everybody at Marvel and they had a song and they interviewed everybody except Ditko. Ditko didn't want to be involved. And so like Stan's like, look who's swinging by the window. It's swinging Stevie Ditko or something.
Yeah, I remember I had that rock comic. It was a double LP.
Yeah.
You opened it up and it was a whole story on the inside in panels. Doctor Strange and Spider-Man versus the Kingpin. Funny. It was.
Yeah. I mean,
funny.
You guys are geeks. You should know the name Rene Aubanjois.
Yes, we do.
He was on that album. He played Doctor Strange on that album.
Was that really him? Are you kidding me? Darren Wagner, take note. Darren is a huge DS9 fan. But I just remember the songs being so corny.
Happy. Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it's such a groove to be free. Peter Parker singing. I'm like, oh, get out of here with that. But, you know, I was a little kid. I was like, oh, this is so awesome.
Did you ever hear the Nobody Loves the Hulk song from the late 60s?
No.
It's punk. It's like kind of a garage rock song where it's like, you know, nobody loves the Hulk. Like, we don't want no green skinned people around here.
Yeah, you made that shit up, didn't you?
No. As a young geek, I collected every possible music related and comic, you know.
Yeah, and
crossovers. There was
so you got the original Kiss comics that had their blood and the ink.
Real blood.
Same.
But like in the 60s, they came out with these albums. I think it was like Peter Pan Records, where they made up theme songs for like Plastic Man and The Flash and Wonder Woman. The Plastic Man one is genius. He's a real great guy in a bright red suit. He always wears goggles and a belt that's a beaut. And it actually, the Metamorpho song is the best.
No. Yeah, one for Metamorpho.
You know that one? Oh no. You got they're all on YouTube. The Metamorpho one tells his origin. And at the end of the song, the singer's like, how do I know this? For you see, I am the element man. So it was Metamorpho singing the song the whole time.
See?
Soon to be a major motion picture star in this new Superman movie.
That's what I hear.
My fingers are crossed. That movie doesn't stink up the place.
Yeah.
I really want it to be good. And I really, you know, when I heard they were finally going to do the Fantastic Four movie and they're doing that retro futurism, I'm like, I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
And then, oh wait, Pedro Pascal. great. Just great. That's what we need. Shave your fucking mustache off, you idiot. Reed does not wear a mustache, and you ain't that badass that you get to get away with this.
I'm waiting to see all the gender and sex swaps beyond the Silver Surfer. I'm sure they're going to pull in something like, the Ben Grimm's girlfriend's a transsexual in the 1960s.
Yeah, it's got to be. I don't want it to be. I want a damn good movie, but I don't know. I liked the first Fantastic Four movie. I did. I thought.
But the Corman one?
No, not
yes.
But Michael Chiklis is the thing. Knowing that was practical and he's actually doing that voice.
Yeah.
That was the most perfect thing. They should have brought him back. And yes, I have Pedro fatigue too. When he popped his helmet off in The Mandalorian, I went, fuck's sake, put it back on. Damn. Remember that dog that would take his doghouse off his head and it would, people would die.
Yeah. What was that? Was that in Garfield or something?
I forget where it was, but it's like that. That was the reaction I had to, oh, Jesus Christ, put your helmet back
Put
on.
it back. But also, like with the music stuff, I love movies that are based on, usually they're Broadway plays like Lil Abner or Superman even. Superman had a musical in the 60s.
Yep.
And the songs are great too, because you got like, I don't know if you know who, Jack Cassidy is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's the villain in the movie. I mean,
Nice.
in the on Broadway, and he's got lyrics like "Here's mud in your X-ray eye" and stuff.
Yes.
And the Little Abner movie is phenomenal. It's just so great. It's about the bottom line is don't trust the government because they all live in Dog Patch and the government figures, you know what? Dog Patch is the most useless town in America, so we're going to use it for H-bomb testing. And it's just really fun. And a lot of pretty girls in their cutoffs and their Daisy Dukes.
Yep.
Someone just posted. Oh, you posted the Nobody Loves the Hulk.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not me.
It's got a great guitar riff too.
I'm gonna.
I remember the Ramones doing Spider-Man.
I will be checking that out. And that was Yuck, the world's ugliest dog, says Darren. Darren is an encyclopedia of the obscure. So
a literal cornucopia.
I see this message from Mike Walters. He's talking about the opening of the Spider-Man cartoon. I actually swiped that for our Mr. A. For our ad, because it opens up with the city in a big web in black and white, and then it says in color. And so I use that because Mr. A has always been in black and white, and this is the first time he's in color. So I thought it was appropriate.
Absolutely.
Very appropriate.
Now I read up on Steve Ditko as much as I could. And,
it's all lies.
I like that he was a moral absolutist. They said Ayn Randian. I don't know if that's true or not.
But he took classes in the Empire State Building with Ayn Rand in the early 60s.
All right. But, I think we need a little moral absolutism these days.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, the thing is, the whole thing with Mr. A is black and white. There is no gray.
Yeah.
You're either good or evil.
Right.
And nothing in between. And a lot of people freak out over that.
Yeah.
Because this came right after, his run on Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
And all these college hippies were like, I want some of what that guy's taking to see all these dimensions and stuff. Sort of like Bobby Kennedy. And so I don't know if you know the Bobby Kennedy story. I'll tell you that later. But so, it is, like you say, sort of moral absolute. So, all these hippies reading Doctor Strange, they see Mr. A and they go like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the polar opposite of
Yeah, it was.
tradition.
Ditko was kind of, that was his way of pushing back against the relativism that comics were delving into at that time. And I'm sorry, I'm with that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, what's wild is it makes more sense today than back then. Back then they were like, okay, this guy's wearing his aluminum foil hat and seeing problems everywhere. But now you read it and go like, he was talking about this stuff, 30 years ago.
That's right. That's right. Yes, when a comic book becomes prophecy, and by the way, conversely, when 1984 becomes an operator's manual for the left, we have arrived at the summit of history, boys and girls.
So I'm really proud to be able to bring this stuff back because it's not really available to current modern audiences, and they should be aware of it. Yeah. And like when I was in 5th grade, the only way I got some of Ditko's independents were, through mail order.
Right.
Used to be a newspaper called The Monster Times, and they would have ads for it and like Basil Wolverton comic and all that stuff. And it's the only, and they were all like 50 cents a piece or something back then.
Yeah.
And, I was telling Christy last night, there's one book we did called Avenging World. And that was one of the books I got in the 5th grade, and I'm reading it and I'm like, gosh, this guy doesn't like the UN. What's wrong with the UN? They're just trying to help everybody. And then slowly I go like, oh yeah. Talk about a league of supervillains, Legion of Doom.
Yeah. Who would have thought they'd put their headquarters right in New York? You couldn't write that into a comic book.
Right. No, it's a beautiful building. They should, I think they all should move, the UN should move to like Ukraine or Gaza instead of.
Agreed.
It's where they're needed the most.
That's right.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you guys think that that the WEF costumes that like Klaus Schwab and stuff wear, is that on purpose so they look like supervillains?
He looked more like a supervillain
from Kandor or Krypton or something.
Yeah, he looked more like Lex Luthor than any Lex Luthor has ever Lex Luthered before.
Yeah. I know, it was just wacky. Yeah, it was sort of like, you got the outfits from Parliament Funkadelic or something.
I was going to say
he was probably wearing platform sneakers.
I was going to say it looked like he raided Ace Frehley's wardrobe. All right, so for those in our audience who might not know about, and I love the tie-in here, Flip City Magazine wouldn't exist had it not been for Mad and Cracked. And more, what do you want to tell folks about your experience with Cracked Magazine?
I loved it. It was like, I was in my early 20s and I was the kid in the candy shop because, we could make fun of anything and everything. And the artists and writers I was working with were a joy as well. And, I was kind of like a dictator, editor-in-chief, sort of like Kurtzman at Mad in the early days. In fact, Kurtzman's Mad inspired me more than the contemporary Mad, which had gotten a little lefty by the time. In fact, my mom once, she said she was at a party and it's like, oh, what's your son do? And he's like, he's the editor of Cracked Magazine. And like, the hell is that? She goes, Mad Magazine? And they go, yeah. Well, Cracked's sort of like the more conservative version.
/ savage version.
Yes. So I was, like I said, I was kind of a dictator. I'd plot all the, if it was a movie parody, I'd plot the story. I basically I'd come up with, what we were going to call it instead of its real name. And then usually plot it with just like the punchline and then give it to a writer to do everything else.
Good time.
And then, like all the covers, I laid out every single cover. And that was a joy to like have John Severin follow your lame layouts, you know, and of course,
man.
obviously make them better, you know.
Yeah.
That guy could do no wrong, John Severin, man.
Yeah.
Woof. His art, I mean, you know, he could do like, because he didn't do like Mort Drucker or Jack Davis caricatures. His were a lot more, I wouldn't say photorealistic, but they usually weren't too exaggerated and stuff. And boy, that guy could do at least a page a day. Because I was trying to figure out once, like in the early 60s, I think he was doing like 120 pages a month for different publishers. That also included paintings and, you know, all kinds of other media art and stuff. And I'm just like, whoo. I asked him about that once, and he was like, well, I had 11 kids.
Well, that explains. I was going to say, you know, where does work ethic like that comes from? But you know, as a guy who has 4, I was like, oh, well, yeah, 11, that'll do it. You know,
back in the day, them Catholics didn't know how to keep it in their pants.
Well, you know,
I don't know. I watched, was it not oversimplified, Salmonella on YouTube's history of some of the weird Pope things. Yeah, apparently that's not a new problem in the Catholic Church.
Well, you try putting out a condom after 8 pints of Guinness.
The one Pope dug up his predecessor out of the grave and put him on trial and had somebody voice the corpse and plead guilty to everything.
I'm guilty.
Guilty.
What would that be? Weekend at Benedict's?
Yes.
I can still make people laugh, even though I'm not getting paid for it anymore.
Look, we're paying you twice as much as we pay every other guest that comes on this show.
Damn.
You know.
Make it 10 times as much. And 10 times 0, right?
I actually discovered Sadistic through you.
No kidding.
Yes. So,
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And I got a Spider-Man over there.
That's awesome.
I always thought it was like, you know, like Superman in his Fortress of Solitude would have statue of friends, family, and enemies.
Yeah,
you know, so
go.
like I picked up a few mannequins, and I got this Spider-Man suit when I was at Marvel, and so I was coming back from a long liquid lunch, and outside my office was a giant box full of Spider-Man outfits, and I was like, yeah, I kind of need one of these. They use them for public appearances, you know, and it was a one piece as opposed to like mask, gloves, you know, boot, whatever.
Yeah.
But did you read any Sadistic?
I've seen a lot of images from it. But
it's a totally cool concept.
Yeah,
I
love.
Like in Italy, well, in Europe in general, they don't have superheroes. They have super villains like Diabolic and Fantomas and stuff, because they were such losers. They didn't know what a hero was. So they would emulate the villains, right? So I don't know if you know Diabolic, but there was a big wave of, you know, super criminals in the 60s in Italy and stuff. And so what it was is this was a photo comic, you know, where every panel is a photo of this guy running around in a skeleton suit, you know, molesting tied up women in their underwear and shit like that. And also being a master of disguise with the masks and all this stuff. And it's a pretty fun series. So
I liked the visuals of it, you know, when I came across it. And
Turkey made like 12 bootlegs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, I knew I'd seen some footage,
There's one with him like beating up. They did it into the 70s. There's one with him beating up some guy with an afro and those platform shoes we're talking about. And they got like the movies, because he was called Killing in Italy. And I thought, you know, Killing as a name in America wouldn't work too well. So I came up with Sadistic, because with a K, because they had like in Europe, they had Satanic and a bunch of K names. So I came up with Sadistic, and it was a different medium back then, because a lot of people that you see in like Italian horror and sci-fi and slasher and softcore films were actors in these comics. And so it was like, I thought like, damn, if only America did comics, you know, photo comics in the 60s, you could have had like Fred Williamson as Luke Cage or something, you know?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And it was just another paycheck, like in between movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I remember seeing some of those back when I was young. And I remember them promptly being snatched out of my hand by my father, who did not want me to see whatever the hell was in there.
I actually produced a documentary with this Italian guy where he tracked down a lot of the actors and interviewed them. And it was pretty cool.
Nice.
And the whole thing was Sadistic with his skull mask. He was under contract not to reveal who he was, you know, and all this stuff. So it's like 40 years later, my friend who directed it tracked the guy down, right? And it turned out he was like the Regis Philbin of Italy now, you know.
Everybody's got a past, baby.
Ain't that the truth?
But yeah, photo comics were big everywhere except America, which
I'm a little disturbed by this comment, Billy. I'm not even sure what you mean. Billy's working on a script for me, and I didn't want anyone to think he's bringing a supply over to the house.
Exactly.
I'll have what you need by Friday.
We'll have 10 kilos of fentanyl for you.
I've got that thing you asked me for.
You know the thing.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So, the idea for the campaign, the new release of Mr. A, what was the genesis of that, Mort?
Well, after I left Cracked, I talked with Steve Ditko about doing Mr. A in color, because it had only been in black and white. And so he was all gung-ho. So we did a bunch of issues, but when I solicited it to, you know, the direct sales, the returns were just pathetic. So I just couldn't afford it, because this is pre-digital. So every page had to be photographically color separated.
Right.
And it was like $1,000 a page.
Yeah.
So I would have been in the hole like 36 grand for just the first issue. And I'd already paid Steve. And so, you know, the sales, I would have made like 2,000 or something. You know? So it just really hurt that we couldn't do it. But over the years, you know, I've been talking with Steve, and I even colored up stuff to send to him, see how he liked it and everything, hoping that, you know, we could do this someday. And he loved the color I did, which is surprising, because he could be pretty critical. And like the only one time he wanted to change was when I did some space alien green, and he's like, no, that should be pink. Well, okay. You know,
why not?
So then, you know, he passed in 2018, and I'd been talking with Mark for a long time already. And then, you know, it took this long to get it all together and stuff.
Right.
So I've been like coloring and lettering some of the books, and Can you hear it?
Yeah. They're coming to take you away, more.
Air raid! Air raid! Take cover!
Yeah, I'm in the crime-ridden part of Portland.
I can tell by the way, just by the sound, that's a fire truck, not an ambulance or a police cruiser.
I'm kidding. Well, we got a lot of pyros here.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
listen,
actually,
it's the
my
city of
building-
love and tolerance. Portland is.
No, this is Maine.
Oh, Maine.
We ain't got no tolerance here. But I was telling someone recently, I miss seeing all the firemen and cops hang out, because we used to have a psycho schizo transsexual who would start fires at least once a week and smash windows and all this stuff. And so, you know, they'd come here and go, "Oh, is it her again?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Once I saw her fighting in the street. She had a large pointy stick, and two cop cars were right in front of her, and she's like jabbing at the cop cars and stuff. And so, you know, so they tackle her and cuff her. And I was like, "Oh, I guess I won't see her too soon." She was out in about an hour or two.
So
See, this is like the plot for a movie.
She was providing training and education opportunities for the local first responders.
Exactly, quite.
Yeah, you know.
Here's how you tackle a transsexual without offending them.
Lord,
you did say no holds barred, right?
None. Bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Bring it.
Why did it go through my head that be sure you use the pink fuzzy cuffs? Hey, Scarlett, good to see you. You know, every community's got one more. Back in the day, we had a hippie here in town that everybody just called Walking Charlie because he walked everywhere barefooted. He bummed food. He had a route he would run, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, to get himself something to eat. And then he had a rival, and it was like a superhero versus supervillain. There was a new guy, a new guy everybody called Superfly. And Superfly started running the same route. And they had issues with that.
Oh, no.
So there was a big fight downtown. Superfly and Walking Charlie. I'm here to tell you the whole town turned out for that fight, baby.
I was gonna say, yeah, people placing bets and stuff.
That predate bum fights, or?
Yes, by a long margin. This was in the late 70s.
I'll tell you a funny local story is, like, you know, Portland used to be a big shipping port closest to Europe and everything. So they would come back from Europe and Africa, and sometimes, you know, they'd have like a tiger or something, and no one wanted it, so they just let it roam the streets. You know,
all right,
in the 1800s. But one of the big attractions that you reminded me of is there used to be this like midget that sold newspapers, and so one of the ship's captains had a pet monkey, and they would have fights. He would sick the monkey on the midget, and people would be placing bets. Who will win? I think the midget usually did because he bit more.
The midget's playing by the rules.
They need to bring that back. I'm telling you, that felt like gangbusters.
Excuse me, Mr. Chimp. Those are not the Queen of Mockberry.
Yeah. Listen, boys and girls, this was the world before the delicate sensitivities of modern culture took over. And it was glorious to be a part of.
And before TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear
I mean, now you can get AI with midgets versus chimps till you're
not
blue.
the same.
Yeah.
It was a glorious time to be alive.
You know, it is funny because I have an uncle, but I never met him. I was too little because he was out of, you know, my aunt's life, you know, before I got to know him. But apparently my dad would hang out with him and his orangutan that he would go take to beat up bums.
Yeah,
was your uncle Clint Eastwood?
No.
One in the chat, if you got that reference.
They got a long reach. You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Trash the caddy, Clyde.
So you got custody of the orangutan when your aunt and uncle broke up?
You know, I don't know much about the orangutan, but I'm betting that we have a homeless problem now because orangutan's not around anymore.
Exactly.
Oh.
See?
You need a good primate.
Cause
to
and
walk the
effect.
street.
That's right. Cause and effect, boys and girls. So, I don't know how we got here, but we were talking about how the new Mr. A got where it's at now. So you guys launched the campaign. And you're fully funded.
Yeah, we have a total of 4 books beyond Mr. A. We did a one of based on the movie Conga, which was a British King Kong ripoff.
Right.
And Steve drew like 20 issues of that at Charlton in the 60s. Right. So I'm recoloring that. And we got another superhero of his called Static, which I think is probably the most like Spider-Man of a lot of characters he did. And
so this is what folks can be looking forward to in the future through this collaboration.
Yeah. and we basically got 50 years worth of Steve's work to use. You know, I mean, we can't use Marvel and DC, but I'm trying to find a way around that. Not illegally, but to work with them to do some special editions because 2027 would have been Steve's 100th birthday.
Right. Oh, wow. Right.
So, you know, we're shooting to that to do a lot of projects. And, you know, I bet once Marvel and DC finds out about his centennial, they're going to put him out anyways. Yeah. So we want to do a deal so we can brand it with the official Ditko name. So
sure. Yes. And that, I mean, what a gold mine of material to be sitting on.
Oh yeah.
Good Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
So we can, in other words, I guess the question I'm asking here, or what I'm implying, this will not be by any stretch of the imagination the last crowdfunder for Ditko stuff.
No.
Now, what is the publishing imprint you're under with this stuff?
Ditko Verse.
The Ditko Verse.
And the site is ditkoverse.com.
There's what I was looking for, buddy.
Yeah. It was funny because Mark had been using that name for a while. And Mark's dad just Ditko Verse. What's that mean? Because he thought it was about poetry. You know, Ditko, like Steve never wrote any poetry, you know, and he didn't realize, you know, you got your Marvel verse, your Spider verse, you know, so it's just another verse universe. Though,
I actually,
sonnets written by Steve would have been pretty good, probably.
Oh, probably. Very black and white. I actually I found out about Steve Ditko through Charleston Comics. I had a big stack of the the old horror movie, ones. I can't think of the titles to save my life right now.
Like Many Ghosts of Dr. Grave, and Scary Tales.
Scary Tales and all that.
It was all postcode, so they had to be mystery books, not,
Oh, but they were great.
Yeah.
That and Ditko and then Tom Sutton were some of my
God. I've got a 200-page Sutton book I'm going to be putting out, and it's got like 3 or 4 comics in it that I recolored, but the rest of it is all his correspondence, interviews with him, rare photos.
Oh man!
And also like his manuscripts and plots that he wrote to send to Charlton and stuff to get approved in his own handwriting and stuff. And it's just, it's just fun to see the creative process.
It is fun.
I mean, it bores the heck out of the working cartoonist, but geeks, of which I am also one, just go like, oh. And it's the same with Mark. He's got an awful lot of relics of Steve's that I've never seen published.
Oh,
like he told me he's got like a set of index cards of superheroes that Steve drew in high school. So this would have been in the 40s, you know, and did them in colored pencil. And on the backside has like who they are and their powers.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. He was doing
like he came up with
trading cards before Marvel did it.
Yeah.
Wow. Now
Another
that
thing he doesn't get credit for, which was groundbreaking, is that he came up with the corner box for Marvel. You know, because until then they had different kind of stuff, but it was his idea, because the way comics used to be on the newsstand, they were either vertical or horizontal. So unless the comic was on top, you couldn't see what it was. So his idea was the corner box. You would see like Spider-Man peeking out or something, you know.
Right,
so like,
right. Yeah.
kids know it, whether, like I said, whether it was vertical or horizontal, you know. So
yeah,
it's what we used to call the eyebrows, was the top of the cover, because that was a newsstand thing. Yeah, make sure your eyebrows are, you know, that's your first thing that the readers are going to see. But now it doesn't matter. I guess they
still looks cool
at a comic shop and stuff, but almost
well,
every
I'll say this:
company
that box has to be the most emulated, copied thing.
Just what I was going to say.
Every comic, everybody does it. And my knee-jerk reaction when I was doing my first comic was, I want that box.
Yeah.
But fortunately,
thank Ditko.
Yeah, exactly. Now I had an editor that was smart enough to say, "You're not Steve Ditko. You don't get the box.
You got the boot.
Yeah, you're not going to be on a newsstand." And it was explained to me at that time where that came from.
Oh yeah.
And this was back in the 90s when I first started doing comics. And so, you know, good editors, you know, they're out there, boys and girls.
Oh yeah.
Listen to them when they tell you, "Shut up, you're wrong."
I don't know if you guys know Julie Schwartz.
That rings a bell.
He was like, you know, DC editor for like 50 years and ended up doing all the Superman books. But my first professional job was writing Superman for DC, and he was my editor. And oh boy, you talk about editors helping you out. He, you know, just in like 5 minutes, I learned more about storytelling than I did my whole life growing up, you know. And because, you know, I'm all self-taught on everything, you know, from comics at Photoshop to video production, whatever. But you know, it was
but by the way,
a real education.
That's a huge battle cry to everyone listening that aspires to be a creator. We're all self-taught. Nobody taught Ditko and Kirby how to do this stuff because no one had done it before. They just did it.
Well, you know the spirit, Will Eisner's spirit. Because growing up, I just loved it, and the fact that like in 8 pages you could tell a whole story.
Yes.
You know, because like starting out doing independent comics, they didn't give you a lot of pages, so. Right. You had to be able to have a beginning, a middle, and end in a couple pages and stuff. So Eisner taught me an awful lot about storytelling. But then I took his class in New York at School of Visual Arts. What a sour individual. He just, I think he just felt like, you know, the world didn't pay enough attention to him or whatever. But he, like, some of his advice for getting into comics is make sure your shoes are shined very well. I'm like, what? And I'm sitting there with my ripped jeans and sneakers and a t-shirt. And I'm like, I mean, I did have some shine shoes, but
you know, again,
that was, you know, like, so for his class, I had already learned everything I could have from him before I took his class, but you know,
there you go.
It was interesting. He'd bring in a few old artists and stuff. That was a gas.
Yeah, there was a line in a movie, and I can't remember who said it or what the movie was, but it was, history is made by the first timers. History is made by the amateurs, the beginners. And think about all the stuff you hear today as a up and coming creator. You will hear, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, this is this method, this is that. All of that, number one, came from hard-earned experience, not through a college course on how to do it. Because
Right.
again, Ditko and Kirby and those guys, they weren't going to college to be comic book artists. There was no such damn thing.
Well, Ditko actually did.
Well, yes, they have formal training, but
he had a GI Bill, and do you know Bern Hogarth?
Yes.
Yeah, Drew Tarzan. He started an art school in the 40s.
Well, okay, there you go.
Which became School of Visual Arts, and I ended up going there and also ended up teaching there for a while. But Steve had some big influences from one of his teachers was this guy, Mort Meskin. I don't know if you know his work, but he did a lot of DC stuff from the 40s to the 60s. And you can see his influence on Ditko.
Nice.
It's just there. And he gave Ditko his first work, which was you ever heard of Captain 3D by Kirby?
I sure
Actually,
have.
yes.
Yeah, it was the Harvey comic, and that was Steve's first job was to ink like backgrounds on layers on like acetate, so they could create the 3D effect and all that.
Yep. But again, these are the legends that carve the way. Everything you take for granted today about how comic books are built, how the stories are composed, written, and executed, all of this comes from these guys. And
all of them had influences too, and it's like you really can't start out unless you're influenced by somebody. I don't know if you've seen some of Kirby's earliest stuff. It looks like Alex Raymond, Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
And his style progressed over decades because he learned what works and what doesn't.
Exactly. And it's just they're such huge shoulders that can uphold the new folks. You know what I'm saying? We've got a strong foundation to build on thanks to these guys.
Definitely.
And
it was weird. I mean, being an editor in the 80s, it was a weird nexus where a lot of the Golden Age artists and Silver and Bronze Age artists were still alive and trying to get work. A lot of them couldn't. Yeah. And so I could take my pickings, basically. I'd go like, would you like to do this job?
Yeah, see? Yeah. Mort held the keys, boys and girls. He was the guy. If you were an aspiring artist back in the day and you got told no, it was Mort that told you no. Stepped on your dreams.
As starting out as a freelancer and meeting, douchebag editors, that like I made sure I wasn't a douchebag editor.
Right.
I always tried to have a constructive criticism because there'd be a lot of times I'd bring in art or a script to another editor and they'd go like, yeah, I don't like this. I want it changed. And you go like, well, what would you like to see? And it's like, I don't know. I just want it changed. Whereas like if I wanted something changed, I'd tell them, move this over here, put that over there.
Exactly right. Again, good editors, bad editors can make or break the story.
Yeah. Because like I said, in the old days, like Julie Schwartz and Stan, they had their fingers deep into the storytelling of each issue and stuff, and that doesn't exist anymore. Like when I was at Marvel, it was an assembly line. It was basically like, oh, we got to put out Silver Surfer number 97, and it was just like part 52 of a crossover.
Right. I remember hearing some of the, and I won't throw names out there, but some of the major
please do,
like Peter David and John Byrne, bitching about Jim Shooter's Iron Hand. He was a tyrant. He was this, that, and the other. And all I can think is, God dang, man, we need a Jim Shooter to walk down the halls of Marvel with pink slips.
Cracking the whip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird because a lot of people didn't like Shooter, and I was still like a fan then, and I was like, oh yeah, he's just that Frankenstein looking dude is evil, and I only met him, probably like 10 years ago, and it's like, what a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Nice.
He just, he had a clear vision of what he wanted.
Yeah. Every company he went to, like Valiant, whatever, he would always bring Ditko with him. Yeah. And so he got a lot of credit for me for that. But there are a lot of other artists like Gene Colan hated him.
Yes. Yeah. He was a very polarizing figure.
Right.
But again, to have that strong of an editorial vision for the shape and direction of the whole line of books.
Yeah.
To move in.
Yeah, I think some people resented that, you know.
Exactly. But
and
God, he desperately
he
needed
would do
these
roughs
days.
too. He would do roughs and sometimes even penciled stuff and everything. But like I would give artists roughs and I would say, this is a springboard. You don't have to copy it. But you could maybe see, you know, how to make it better.
Yeah.
Or you can just follow what I have because, you know, sometimes, you know, script writers will have like 5 different things going on in one panel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll be like, so the paratrooper jumps out of the plane while a Nazi plane strafes at him and he hits the ground and rolls over and takes off his parachute in one panel.
Right.
Yes. How are you going to do this?
We just literally, I'm not going to say the book because these are current creators, but I was in a meeting with some of them and I was like, okay, dude, you've got like 10 different actions happening in 3 panels. That's not how any of this works. And he was, I don't understand what you mean. A brand new writer, his first time. So I try to be, like you said, I'm not going to be a douchebag. This guy was like, in order to get where you want to go, here's what you need to do. And explain each panel breaks down a single action. You've got to pick the gems out of your story and say, these are the ones I want on that page. Right. But you can't, like you just said, you can't have writers.
I tell writers to do a rough layout, even if it's just stick figures, you know?
Exactly.
Just so the artist has, you know, a compass sort of.
Yeah, you can't turn in a novel and say, make a comic book out of this. Here's 400 pages of my wonderful writing. Now turn this into 28 pages of panels. Get the fuck out of here with that. It doesn't work that way.
When I was at Marvel too, I got the rights to do this Ayn Rand book called Atlas Shrugged. Which it's basically a Doc Savage novel. It really is. It's just like, you know, this industrial leader and he's got like 5 guys who are the master of everything that they're in their profession.
Yeah.
And so they create a secret society in the Rocky Mountains with a cloud projector to cover it up. And of course, the government's got to invade and kill everybody.
Yeah.
So I got the rights to that and I figured, oh God, this is perfect for Ditko, right? And it's like a 400, 500 page novel. Yeah. And so I wanted to do it as because back then that was when Marvel's putting Akira out, you know?
Oh yeah.
And so I wanted to do like 48 issues, you know, and they're like,
nice.
Okay, you can do 3. All right.
Oh,
and I figured it was a natural for Ditko. So I called him up and go like, yeah, you want to do this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, you know, everyone has their own idea of what these characters look like from when they read the book. And I don't want to be responsible for defining them in junk. And so I told that to the Ayn Rand estate and they were like, whatever he draws, we'll approve. You know,
what a conscientious viewpoint,
totally.
though.
Oh, I know.
Ditko, you know,
well, and you know the character Firestorm at DC.
Yeah.
He was offered that as well, and you know, the first script was about bad cops, and he was like, nah.
Yeah. No thanks.
But yeah, my 2 biggest regrets of my career were the Atlas Shrugged book, and also the Mr. A series. And I managed to pull the Mr. A series out of history and do that.
Yeah.
Never be able to do Atlas Shrugged.
I feel that. I read Atlas Shrugged in college, and I don't think it was required reading, but the professor I had at the time, I minored in lit, majored in psych. The minor in lit was by accident, by the way. I just really liked that professor, and he offered a lot of courses. But he recommended the book, and I read it. I could never make that into a comic book ever.
Oh,
I
watch
could
my
not.
dust.
Yeah, I know you could.
No, there are some instances where some of the characters speak for like 2 pages, about their beliefs and capitalism versus communism and all this stuff, and so you'd have to.
It's a heavy read. It's a heavy read.
But like I said, on the whole, though, like I said, they got they're basically these superheroes fighting against the government in a secret city where they make their own everything. And in fact, like, again, there's like 2 or 3 pages where she describes the cigarettes they make there. And that like cigarettes are like the ultimate in, the progress of humans, that you could take something lit on fire and put it in your mouth and enjoy it. And all the cigarettes there in the city had a gold $ printed on them.
Oh, nope, I don't. I make my own, so of course that makes me Randian. Apex says Mr. A was a trippy street level character. Hey, Morton, blah 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 blah. Apex, good to see you.
Howdy. Hi, Apex.
Apex is a fellow Navy veteran and does his own very, I want to say late Golden Age, early Silver Age, little mini comic books.
Oh, cool.
That are just great. Fembat being one of them. It's how's Fembat doing, Apex? Let us know in the chat.
I had, I was coming up with an imprint to do some comics, and I came up with Ape X, and the mascot would have been an ape from outer space with an X on him. So it wasn't Ape X, it was Ape X.
Ape X.
Wild Stallions.
Yeah, right.
But with a Y. Yeah, I was in a band in the 80s, Wild Side. SYDE. WYLD. I'm like, what the hell were we thinking?
Right. And was the logo kind of graffiti style?
No, it was all sharp, pointy edges.
It was black metal.
Oh yeah. See, we wanted to be hard metal, singing about panties and fast cars. Get out of here with that. Jesus. Yeah, you look back on some of the things you've done and you go, what was I thinking? Like Tanner is one of the guys. He went and researched and found one of my old comics from the 90s.
I did.
And I'm like, never open that.
It wasn't that I researched it. I owned it before I knew you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're the one.
And I was like, wait a tick.
You're the one who bought a copy. But I'm like, never open that. Never show me that work. It's embarrassing. So, Mort, what's next?
Well, you
heard it here first, boys and girls.
Yeah, the Ditko verse stuff is ongoing. But I've got an agreement with Don Martin's widow. Do you know Don Martin? Mm-hmm. Because I swiped him for Mad when I was at Cracked, because they didn't allow creator rights or return artwork or pay for reprints, and we even got him on our medical. And,
nice.
Yeah, he was one of the 3 legally blind cartoonists I was using back then.
Wow. Was he really?
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's just it. They had to still, they didn't have pensions or anything. They had to still draw.
Yeah.
And most of them were like, had to be about an inch away from the page.
We need to introduce more to Jason Bascom.
I know, right?
Jason Bascom is legally blind and one hell of an artist.
Hell of an artist.
Yeah. And so anyways, I did them a big thing back in the day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be putting out his paperbacks.
Nice.
You know, because he doesn't own the rights to the Mad stuff, but the rights to the paperbacks he does own. So like Captain Klutz and Fester, Bester, Tester, and you know. So that's another thing. Plus, right before this Ditko thing happened, I was talking with Diamond about starting a new line, because basically for the last 10 years, I had an imprint called Charlton Neo. And you know, it was inspired by Charlton, and it was mostly new material, sometimes using Charlton characters or, you know, in that vein and stuff. So I'd been talking to Dime about starting a new line, and so I've got an awful lot of inventory. So I don't know.
You're sitting on a gold mine, aren't you?
Yeah. Like I said, that Tom Sutton book it's just
more.
beautiful.
Damn it, man! You're just sitting on a freaking gold mine.
And will you be crowdfunding those, or?
Oh yeah. I've been talking with someone who does hard covers, like leather bound, gold embossed, you know, like in Holland or something. So we'll probably do a hardcover version, because the guy who came up with the project and did a lot of the legwork, he owns a lot of Sutton originals. So that's what I colored him from and stuff. But his main thing is like, I don't care. I don't want to make any money. I just want to have a hard bound copy, you know.
I just want it to exist.
Yeah, you just want it to exist.
That's most creatives just want to will it into existence, you know.
We've been working on this for like 5 years, so it's like time to get off the pot.
Yeah, nice. So in terms of production, you just successfully funded this campaign. When do you think you'll launch the next one?
As soon as we ship the initial books.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Because, you know, I don't want to start another campaign before the books go out, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because by the same token, I don't do the crowdsourcing until the books are finished and ready to go to the printers.
Same.
I've had some hiccups in the past where, oh, shit, I still got to finish this book, you know.
Yep. That shit happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking probably June, July, even, you know, we'll start another one that will have
very nice
the second issues of each of these titles, and so on and so on.
You're gonna be sticking to Indiegogo, or are you gonna?
No. I've always done Kickstarter, and I thought I saw people doing comics on Indiegogo making tons more than Kickstarter, but it didn't happen to us. But I think it's going to snowball. And yeah, and people have been telling me about, like, you know, Fund My Comic and Zoop.
Fund My Comic is here's what I will say about Fund My Comic. They are 100% free speech. If they approve your campaign to go up, no amount of hate campaigning will ever bring it down. Luke Stone tells those people to pick one and suck it. They get behind you 100%.
Oh, that's good, because I wanted to do the Shiloh Hendricks comic.
Mm-hmm.
You know her?
No.
You know of her, whether you don't know her name.
Tell us.
She went to a park about a week ago in Minnesota.
Oh.
A little
okay.
So
GoFundMe won't kill that book if
they approve it.
Hey, if they approve
it stays up. But I was when I launched my first book, Mort, Kickstarter had just done a real nasty to Mike Barron. So I'm like, okay, I'm not doing business with them.
Yeah.
So then I go to Indiegogo, and they shadow banned me from my sign up all the way through. And to add insult to injury, at the end of the campaign, we still successfully funded by direct
How do you find
referrals.
out if you're shadow banned?
Go to the site logged out and search for your book, and it won't show up. But then to add insult to injury, they had the nerve to take credit for 22% of my funding as if they referred. It's like, no. And we actually got a rep to talk to us, my publisher and I, an email. And when we presented him that and told him, look, just log out and go search for the book right now. And
I
you'll
wish
see
I had
it was
known
shut
that.
down. Yeah. So between that book and my newest one, Fund My Comic popped up, and no issues whatsoever. It's just smooth sailing. The lowest platform fee, I think it's a 1% fee
Right.
versus whatever the hell it is on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
So, I'm FMC for life,
Cool.
unless they go sideways.
Yeah. Well, we'll look into that because
Yeah.
I've heard from a few other people that they had happy feelings about GoFundMe. No, not GoFundMe. Fund My Comics.
That word "fund" was in there somewhere. Damn it!
Yeah, I know,
But yeah, I was just going to say, if you do go back to Kickstarter, maybe launch on Fund My Comic as well, because the big two over there have done so many people dirty. A lot of folks won't do business with them, but they will with Fund My Comic. So, something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, because I just felt I wish I'd known about checking out for shadow banning, just because I think we should have made about 10 times what we did.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And some of these bigger names in the indie sphere space that do crowdfunding, they should be behind you pushing this stuff. I got a dinky little nothing show, and I'm happy to have you guys and do anything I can to help.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Having said that, I'm lucky if I see 4 digits on a funding. So I would like to see you guys get some horsepower behind you, because you deserve it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks. Yeah, because like John Del Aros did an interview with us, and he was like, "How come you don't have 1 million backers?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Yeah, hey."
Speaking of my publisher, there he is. What's up,
Hey,
Anthony?
PG.
Good to see you. Anthony, this is Mort Todd. You may have heard of him. Mort Todd, this is Anthony Romano. You've never heard of him.
Until now.
Wham, wham, wham. Of course, he never heard of me until like an hour ago either. So, what the fuck do I know? We're coming up on time to wrap up the show, boys and girls. But before we go, keep your eyes open for more of Mr. A coming from the Ditko verse.
.com.
.com. Damn it. You can literally put .com behind anything, and there's a site out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep your eyes out for this stuff. The great Steve Ditko, tons of work that's never before been out there like this. What a great opportunity for those. I mean, I grew up in the early Silver Age reading comics, and I treasure the quality of those stories and those books. I even miss the smell of the newsprint,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always envious that I wasn't around for the golden age stuff, Well, here's your opportunity. If you're nostalgic for a time that you never knew, for quality that you didn't know existed, this is where you want to go.
And that obviously inspired next generations of artists and stuff.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you haven't voted yet in the Flip City poll, go over and vote for Omer Glitch's submission, not mine, because mine sucks.
Which
Yours
one's
is great.
Oh, I just
saw
did a quick.
some of them last
I
night.
did a quick riff on Adam Schiff because I can't stand that
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
guy.
I did have a constructive critique on your drawing.
You did. Well,
Yeah.
please
The
share.
neck was too big.
That's true.
Everybody told him that.
That is true. Carrie is.
But
fussing.
otherwise, good job.
Well, thank you. Carrie is fussing at my publisher. When Doc got funny, people said Damn Dirty Thing had authentic cigarette smoke smell to really submerge the readers in the comics, but mine didn't smell like smoke at all. I feel cheated. Anthony, you didn't smoke enough around the printing.
You didn't smell the smoke?
I had this artist from Argentina at Cracked, and whenever his art came in, it just reeked of tobacco. And then, like, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Whiteout, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds good.
He would have a bit of Whiteout on it, and it all had ash flecks in it.
Yeah, baby. I just put a piece of original 11x17 into the hands of a friend of mine that came to visit. That's a big pinup that I shrank down and just used as a panel in the comic, complete with coffee stains and nicotine stains and ashes.
There you go.
Heck yeah.
So you know you're getting an original Doc Blaylock.
Well, that Zeus comics that Tanner was brought up was I did a lot of that sort of shit. I did coffee stains and also fake bad registration.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing it all in Photoshop, but like I'd move a red plate over. You know.
Good on you. Good on you. That's the way to do it. All right, boys and girls, we're going to wrap it up here. Chat, you guys, as always, rock. Anthony Romano, by the way, call me. I left you a message. We got some quick business to discuss. I want to thank my co-hosts, as always. Terrible Tanner Hurley, charismatic Christy. Thank you, Mighty Mort Todd, for showing up and gracing us with your presence. It was a pleasure.
Mutual.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure that's true, but thank you for saying it. And with that, let's get the hell out of here.
Look, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm tired of talking to you.
And don't think it hasn't been a little slice of heaven.